Welcome. Welcome to the Southern Region RAC meeting here. We've got a full house. We're setting up some more chairs. Please squeeze in, make room. This meeting is being held in person here in Richfield at the DNR office. Today is December 16th, Tuesday, and we're starting here at 6 p.m. Mountain Time. It's also being streamed live on YouTube. This is a public forum that allows you to express your ideas and comment on wildlife management in the state. This advisory council will consider your feedback and report them back to the Wildlife Board. The Wildlife Board, not this council, is charged with setting wildlife policy for our state. Wildlife management is complex and it is usually emotionally charged. We all have ideas and opinions about what is best, and that's why we're here today, and that's a good thing. We encourage those who want to express their opinion at today's meeting to fill out one of these green comment cards. You can pass them to a member of DWR and they'll get them up to us. We expect those in attendance to respect those who speak, especially those whose views do not align with yours. Respectful behavior helps facilitate efficient meetings where we can listen, digest, and address the concerns, ideas, and proposals today. Any disrespectful behavior, yelling, cheering, or laughing while someone is speaking will not be tolerated, and we will ask you to leave. If you need to take a phone call, please step outside. If you need to have a conversation with someone in the room, you're welcome to step out into the foyer here. Well, we'll welcome all of our RAC members here tonight, and we'll let everybody introduce themselves. We'll start over here with Trevor.
I'm Trevor Barneson. I represent Ag.
Gary?
Gary Barney, I'm elected.
Herman Russell.
Russ Gardner, I represent the Farm Bureau.
Chris?
Chris Cannon, I represent the Sportsmen. Thanks for being here.
And Chuck?
Chuck Chamberlain, I represent the Forest Service out of Cedar City.
Perfect. We have a few members of our council online. We'll start with Rachel and go to Brooklyn.
Rachel Bullis, Watchable Wildlife.
Brooklyn Cox, the Cedar City BLM.
Thank you. And Bart, and then Chad.
Bart Batista, Watchable Wildlife.
Chad Utley, St. George, Public at Large.
Thank you. We appreciate you joining in virtually. My name is Austin Atkinson from Cedar. Represent Public at Large, and I'll be chairing the meeting tonight. We excuse a couple of RAC members that are not here with us this evening. We'd like to welcome a few members of the Wildlife Board that are here with us tonight. Ms. Paula Richmond is here in person. Thank you for being here. We also have some board members online. Gary Nielsen, Kent Johnson, and Bob Christensen. Thank you for joining us. We welcome all other staff that's here tonight that's going to help with our meeting. We welcome all public that's attending. This is a full room, and we appreciate you spending your evening with us. Those that are attending in person have the opportunity to comment. If you watch the presentations online, you were to submit online comment before this meeting. The public that is watching live now on YouTube will not be able to provide live comments during this meeting. Okay. Want to speak to the protocol just a little bit, how this meeting's going to go. So we'll go according to the agenda, which you saw outside. We have multiple items, 9 agenda items total this evening, and we'll try to get through them as quickly as possible. After we briefly introduce and discuss an agenda item, we will call for questions from the RAC members first, and then we'll call for questions from the public. And we want to keep that to questions only. You come up to the mic, state your name, and you can ask a question of the DWR officials that are here. Then we will talk about online public comments, and then we can have in-person public comments. If you fill out a comment card, we'll call you up for that agenda item. You can come up here and speak. Then we'll have RAC discussion and vote. If there are comments on the informational items, so the first 4 items on the agenda are considered informational, meaning the RAC will not be making a decision or a motion on those items. But since this is my meeting and we can do it how we'd like. We are still going to take public comment on those meetings. I assume that's why many of you are attending tonight. So please fill out a comment card, put down the agenda item you would like to speak to, and we'd love to hear your comment on that. I think that's about it for procedure. So let's go through approval of the agenda from the RAC and the minutes from the last meeting. Any RAC members have any questions or modifications that need to be made? I'll entertain a motion on that.
I would make a motion that we approve those minutes.
Motion by Chris to approve last meeting's
I'll
minutes.
second it.
Second by Trevor. All those in favor in the room, you can raise your hand and please say aye as well. All those in favor?
Aye.
And online, I've got Chad and Rachel with a hand raised. Brooklyn. I'm missing one, right? Bart, how do you vote?
I approve. I'm just trying to find the hand raise button. Sorry about that.
I know you'll get it. Thanks, Bart.
All right.
Okay, unanimous on that motion. It is approved. Okay, agenda item number 3 is a Wildlife Board meeting update. The last Wildlife Board meeting was held December 4th up in Farmington. Pretty simple meeting as far as how the votes went, so I'll discuss those. Agenda item number 3 was the 2025 through 2027 hunt table and season date revisions. That motion, there was 2 motions. The first one was to ask the division to look at the Antelope Island MOU and adjust both season dates and hunting structure. That relates to how they hunt deer on Antelope Island with the auction tag versus the draw permits. That passed unanimously, so the division will look at that. And the second motion was to approve the remainder as presented. And there were very few changes to the hunt tables and season dates because we're on that 2-year structure with those. The next agenda item was the Book Cliffs Bison Management Plan. That was to change how the Book Cliff bison hunts are managed and how permits are allocated. And that was passed as presented unanimously by the board. The next motion was the natural disaster relief amendments. That has to do when there's wildfires and big acts like we saw on the Monroe Mountain this year. They'll have a few more tools in their pocket to not have to call emergency meetings when something happens like that. And that motion passed unanimously as presented. The CWMU and landowner permit recommendations passed unanimously with 1 recusal as presented. And then the Blackhawk CWMU and Hiawatha CWMU variance recommendations passed unanimously as presented. So again, you can view that Wildlife Board meeting online. It's available on YouTube forever if you want to go back and watch it. But that was all for the Wildlife meeting. Any questions from the RAC members about Wildlife Board? Ready to move on. Okay. Agenda item number 4, we're going to go to a regional update from a regional supervisor, Kevin.
Thanks, Austin. If you'd pull that up, Adam, and I'll be brief. I think we've got other items that people are here for tonight, but let me just run through update, starting with our wildlife section. Super busy time for them right now with captures and doing deer classification. They should wrap up the captures on Saturday. And Teresa wanted me to thank everybody who's come out to assist with those. Our deer growth meetings that have been going on around the state. We've got three groups here in the southern region, one that's based out of Richfield here, one out of Cedar City, and one that's meeting over at Ruby's. Those have been going really well, and what they're focused on is projects through WRI right now to think whether they're water or habitat restoration projects and things of that nature to try to help grow our deer herds. Our wildlife and habitat sections have been installing lots of guzzlers this fall, some of them here in Sevier County. And then we've partnered with USU on a short and long-term impacts of the Monroe fire to find out what's, so we can follow what's happened with the wildlife with the big fire that happened here this summer. Next. We're also in that time of year with Christmas bird counts and winter raptor surveys. And we've recently worked on some revisions on some of our habitat management plans for our WMAs. Go ahead, Adam. Our aquatic section, probably the biggest thing here is the work we've been doing with the reconstruction of the Panguitch Lake Dam. Just real briefly there, because Panguitch Lake is a natural lake, the dam's not at the low point of the lake. And so there's a dead section down at the bottom of the lake where we get a bunch of just dead water where the fish can't survive in as materials get washed down in there and they deteriorate. And so with the reconstruction of the dam, it's given us an opportunity to actually put a siphon and pull water out of that dead section of the lake, which is what results in the algae blooms and water quality warnings that come out at Panguitch Lake. So we're hoping over the next several years to be able to resolve that. That's a pretty cool project. Next, Fish Lake. We did some improvements on the boardwalk up at Twin Creeks, and then we did our normal work down at Lake Powell this late fall, and fish populations are go. Our Washington County Field Office is mostly involved with threatened and endangered species work with desert toads, desert tortoises, and all the Virgin River fish. And they're always busy with lots going on. I won't go into specifics there because of time. Let's go ahead, Adam. Lots of work on the three big fires that happened here in the region this year: the Monroe Canyon, the Forsyth, and the fires. The Monroe and France Canyon have been seeded, and we're the seeding contracts and chaining contracts should go out on the Forsyth fire here shortly. We've also collared some deer in conjunction with UDOT to study the impacts of migrating deer there along Highway 89 between Kanab and Lake Powell. Let's go ahead, Adam. Outreach and lots of seminars going on this time of year. We just had a really well attended and well done ice fishing seminar in Cedar last weekend, and some viewing events coming up. Our Bald Eagle viewing event on January 9th out at Rush Lake, and there'll be some waterbird viewings at Jackson Flat Reservoir in Kanab, and then obviously the Snow Goose Festival in Delta, which if you've never been to that and seen 10,000 snow geese in the air at a time, it's worth going out and seeing. And then just a reminder for dedicated hunters, there are still projects. It's a slow time of year, and you can get out and maybe have your choice of projects this time of year rather than have to take what's left if you're doing it in July and August just before the tags are released. Go ahead. Law enforcement, really busy, lots of cases during October and November, and the officers are focused on finishing up those cases and moving them through the court system with our county prosecutors. That's all I have. I know that was quick, but I think we want to give the people that are here for other agenda items the time to spend on that, but I'm happy to take any questions from the RAC if you have any.
Any questions for Kevin?
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Kevin. Appreciate that. All right, we're going to move on to agenda item number 5. This is an informational item, the Utah Cougar update. We don't have Mr. Chad Wilson with us here tonight, but we do have Mr. Darren DuBois. Thank you, Darren, for stepping up and being here. Please
Green
speak
light
directly.
looked like
into
it
the
was
mic.
on. I'm Darren DuBois. I'm our private lands public wildlife coordinator. I'll be pinch hitting for Chad tonight, but I do have a background in the mammals program, so hopefully I can answer any questions that we have tonight on this. I don't know if you want to run down. It was a pretty brief presentation, so I'm happy to take questions on that.
Okay, we'll go to questions from the RAC first for Darren and try to keep it to questions. Chuck?
Just one question for you. How comfortable are you with the numbers, the current numbers of mountain lions in the state?
Yeah, the take home, and I think Chad mentioned this in the presentation, when you look at that population model, first of all, it's based on harvest. So it's always going to be a minimum. It doesn't take into account any kind of natural mortality that might, if you added that in, all it does is just move the line up the graph, but it doesn't change the shape of it. So that's important to remember. The other thing is it's always 2 years behind because we don't see kittens and yearlings very often in the harvest, or at least they're underrepresented. And so you can't model those two cohorts. And so it'll always be, our best estimate's always going to be a couple years old, which is why we don't use it in the plan we don't have a plan anymore, why we didn't use it in the plan prior. Having said that, yeah, this is based on cougars in hand. So I think it's a pretty good estimate of at least the trend. And it looks like, we peaked in, if I remember right, 2018-ish. Look real quick. By that estimate, 2016, looks like we probably peaked in the numbers of lions. It also actually follows the deer line pretty closely. So as you might expect, their main prey item, they tend to track that. As deer numbers grow, lion numbers, you'd expect them to grow. There's usually a lag period. You might see a big decline in deer and maintain high lion numbers, absent hunting or any other kind of removal efforts until, that you see that happen with the cougar population. In this case, it looks like that population's been declining since 2016 and is similar to what it was in 2004 statewide. And that doesn't mean there might be local shifts or differences that people might see just based on the hunting pressure, probably.
Chris?
I'm sure this question is probably going to come up with some of these sportsmen, but if our levels drop to a certain point, will we go back to a quota system? What's the end goal?
Well, there's a couple of things. There's two state laws that are in effect that the division is bound to follow. The first and probably the most significant is that anytime we detect predators in general, but in this case lions, impacting mule deer populations, the director is required by law to enact predator management programs on those units. The second one is the one that was more recent, where we switched our management strategies, and that again is a state law. So there are some things that the board could do, or the division could recommend, and the board could do. But as far as quotas go and permits, that would take a law change. And so that's kind of where we are in terms of the process.
Darren, I have a question. The few places that we've done collar studies on cougars, do we ever see cause-specific mortality on a cougar? And do they ever die of starvation? What kills cougars?
Typically, so when we do see more mortality, it's, the number one cause is hunter harvest, right? We do see natural mortality. It's usually fairly low. It's things like old age, and as they get old and just can't capture prey anymore, you'll see them shift to other prey items, and then yes, starvation can happen. They just can't get enough to eat. We did see cougars get killed by their prey. So we had one that got kicked in the jaw, probably trying to take on an elk or even a deer, broke the jaw, and it starved to death because it could no longer eat. So in terms of by far and away, hunter harvest is the top cause of mortality for lions, but you'll have roadkill and those kinds of incidences that I talked about too, at a much lower rate. They don't typically, the other one would be cougar on cougar violence. Yeah, they do kill each other from time to time. Yeah.
I guess what I'm trying to understand, Darren, from you is we see coyote numbers fluctuate with a rabbit population. If there's less rabbits,
right,
it's just they're inherently having less young. But I'm trying to understand if that correlation is the same for cougars and deer.
Yes.
Say we have less deer, all of a sudden we have less cougars. Are they dying because they're hungry?
Broadly, yes. They'll typically mirror the prey populations we kind of see in the graph in the presentation. And again, there may be a lag. So you may see a big winter kill. You won't see those lions typically decline until you get down the road 2 or 3 years. And in a study in California, I think it was as much as 7 or 8 years before that population had a reaction. In It's important to remember, though, that in some systems, cougars can prey switch. And so even if you have a decline in deer, they'll switch to other prey items. And cougars can kill elk and be pretty effective, especially big toms. And so if they have another food source, sometimes that population won't be affected by a decline in deer. You won't see that cycling that we see with coyotes and rabbits, or bobcats and rabbits.
Darren, when we lost the permits for cougars and they went just unlimited, if you had a hunt license, there was a worry that we would substantially increase the harvest. I don't see that in the numbers. Can you speak to any reason why that might
Yeah, I
be?
think there's a couple of things. One is we were, before that law passed, if you recall, we already had units that were basically unlimited harvest objective units. And those were put in place because of the law that requires the director to enact predator management. So we had predator management plans on about 2/3 of our cougar units before that. So we were already seeing, I think the biggest harvest year was the year before they changed the regulations. And so I guess the answer is, we were working towards trying to reduce cougar populations prior to that. And then as that passed, we're kind of seeing the effect of 2 or 3 or 4 years prior to the law changing. So it just was catching up. And then obviously, I think especially it seems like, and what people have told me is that areas that get a lot of attention, that are accessible in the winter and good places to hunt lions, are probably the ones that lost most of their lions first. And so, so they're not showing up in the harvest anymore. There's a lot of refugia in the state that just aren't accessible in the wintertime. People can't get there with their dogs, and that's the most effective method. And so we have these pockets, keep hitting that mic. There are these pockets that sort of supply, so they'll have lion surpluses that spill out of those refugia into areas that we call sinks, where we're hunting and pressure is a lot higher. But it looks like, from the harvest numbers, there probably are fewer lions for people to harvest. And that's, again, by design, that's something that we're working towards.
Other questions from the RAC members? Okay, I'm going to ask you a question on project 7707, WRI project.
Yeah.
Explain to those listening and to me how that interacts with, we've got unlimited cougar harvest for hunters with a license,
right?
Trapping licenses as well, but this is a separate project. And how is that harvest recorded? Do we have access to those numbers at all?
I don't know if I know the answer to the last question. I suspect that they will let the board know how that project is going. So this is a research project. One of the touchstones in predator management for years and years and years has been that predators do not affect prey populations top down. In other words, you can't have so many predators that you can't grow a prey population. One of the advantages we have in Utah is that we have thousands of collars out, more collars than any other state in the West, or probably even in the United States. And one thing we've noticed with our deer studies is that there are specific units in the state where once lion predation on adult does goes above 7%, those populations will not grow. They get below that threshold where they can grow. And so in this project, what we wanted to do is experimentally look at some of those units where we see those criteria where they're above 7% adult doe mortality of lions, and see if we can answer that question. If you remove enough lions, will that release your deer herd? It's a critical question, especially in terms of, how do we manage moving forward? If it is the case, then we can use that metric to focus on areas where we really have a problem. If it's not effective, then that changes the question too. And so that really, I think it's important for us to figure this out, and it's important to do in a rigorous way, so we can have a definitive answer. We have a couple anecdotal, the Manti is one, South Manti. It looks like once we increased lion tags on the South Manti, our doe survival increased, but it wasn't experimental. So it's really important to get those data. So that's the intent.
And how does that project come about?
It's something that, we've been talking about this for a few years. Just, is there a way that we can get a definitive answer to this question? Again, if you go to a Cougar Summit, this is something that's not on the radar of a lot of people who manage cougars throughout the world. Cougars are fairly ubiquitous. They're from all the way from Canada, South America. But they don't have the data set that Utah has on deer. They just don't have they can't see to that scale. And so it's important for management, and we have the data and the capability to get the answers. I think it's important.
Very good. So we might be wrong about the study, right? We're learning. Is that fair to say?
It looks, there's fairly compelling data that shows that, if you have a unit, so there's probably 9 units in the state last time I looked at it, that would meet the criteria of 7% or more adult doe mortality. And that's based on collared deer. So, if 7% of your collared deer are being killed by lions, then you probably have got a lion issue that's causing that population to not grow. We have a lot of cougar units in the state. And if it's just 9 out of 30, that's important to know.
Sure. Darren, do you happen to remember how many cougars were taken on the Desert Bighorn Sheep Nursery Sanctuary? Version 1, I'll call it.
The last I heard, it was in the 30s. I could be wrong. 31?
31 lions taken?
Yeah, which is crazy. If you
And
think
how
about
big of a property?
how big is it? It's not big. 1,800 acres.
1,800. Okay.
So we also found when we did our study on the Nebo, we had some pretty experienced houndsmen helping us with that. And they were shocked at how many lions they were catching. They kept catching. They caught about 30 lions, and they still had uncollared lions showing up on their cameras. So densities can be higher than I think a lot of us would have guessed. And that's just 2 units, 2 areas, but it can be, certainly.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, questions from the public. If you have a question, please step up to the mic, state your name. We'll make sure the mic's on, and you can ask a question. And then you have to turn the mic on. And we only have 2 comment cards on this agenda item. So if you have a comment card, let's pass it down to our team. Paul, Lieutenant. Pass it over to Lieutenant Washburn. But step up if you got a question. Let's hear it.
So this study that you're talking about, Darren, is this the government hunters killing the lions?
Yeah, we're working with UDAF to get those lions taken. So they're
How are they going to take those lions?
So I don't know all the details. I know they'll probably use any method that they can. So snares, dogs. Snares are probably going to be the most effective way, though.
So in the same
Traps,
areas that the
traps.
sportsmen will be trying to hunt?
Yeah, I'm hearing traps. Yeah, I think, I don't know the timing. I know they'll be using them year round, but again, most effective. And usually traps are most effective in the summer or fall. So yeah, they could be out when you're
year round. Did you say year round?
That's my understanding. Again, I don't know all the details, but
so we're going to trap bears too then?
I'm seeing heads nodding.
Bears too then?
No, just lions.
You can't differentiate with snares and traps. Thank you.
Thanks. Any other questions from public?
Good evening. My name is JJ Brewer. I represent the Utah Houndsman Association, but also myself. First of all, thank you for letting us be here, having a public process, being able to have some comments, conversation. We may not all agree, but I do appreciate this process. I have a lot of questions. That's the first time I've heard of this study or this research project with a name, so thank you for that. So my understanding is this project or study will be government hunters who have been hired on how many units?
6
units. And what units are those going to be?
Pine Valley, Monroe, Zion, Boulder, East Wasatch, and Stansbury.
And it's currently going, correct? Has been for how long now?
The study just got finalized, but I know they've been working some of those based on the deer numbers.
Yeah, correct. So I have a lot of questions. One, we've already had a case where a hound, a member of one of his hounds was caught in one of these cases at a baited snare. There was multiple snares, multiple footholds. There was a bait hanging in the tree, meat that was hanging in the tree, targeting specifically a mountain lion. When those situations happen, To me, that's a bait site, right? When we register a bait site for bears, my question is, will the division make these bait sites or these places that are going to be trapping mountain lions public by the government, specifically hunters? I'm not talking other trappers. I'm talking
Yeah,
about government hunters.
I doubt it, but I don't know.
I mean, that's a lot of risk when we're hanging meat in a tree. I mean, that opens a lot of room for a non-targeted species to be caught on there, specifically people, recreational sportsmen, dogs, hikers, lots of things we don't want.
Yeah. So yeah, obviously we're interested in your comments about all of that.
Yeah, that's obviously a big concern for me specifically. I know at the most recent hound sale we had, the average hound sold for $15,000. Was that was the minimum trained hound at that sale.
Yep. I've had to buy a hound before.
Yeah, you understand that. So there's a lot of time and money being taken away from the sportsmen. So again, I'm all for helping the ag guys too when they have some sheep and depredation. I feel there's some risk there with us losing a hound. Where is that funding going to come for us?
Yeah, I again, it's public land, and so you'll have to accept the risk at this point.
And I'm not going to lie, I hate that answer.
Yeah,
especially when I've worked. I hope we have worked really hard to help. Specifically, I've had meetings with ag that we want to be your help. When you have an issue, please call a houndsman. In this situation as well, if there's really problem lions, why are the houndsmen and sportsmen not being called first to help take care of this problem? To remove the resource.
Right. Yeah.
Sportsmen are losing the opportunity to harvest that lion.
Yeah, I'm not in the details of the planning, so I don't know that I can answer that question.
Okay. Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and go over it. Will obviously mothers and female kittens are not something we can currently harvest. When one of those are in one of these government sets, what's the protocol there?
If you're going to reduce a population, you need to take females and kittens. So
babies.
They'll be doing that. Yeah.
Okay, that's understandable. And when a non-target animal like a mule deer buck gets in one of these government sets, same thing?
Yeah, an effort will be made to remove them, but that's potential.
And do we know where
this is one of the reasons why we're using professional trappers.
That was my next question. Do you know where these trappers come from and who funded this study? Because to my knowledge, this wasn't a public vote on, right? This didn't go through a public RAC system or the public wildlife board. Where did this come about? Who funded it?
So it's being funded by SFW and the Wild Sheep Foundation, right? That's my understanding.
Those are the two contributors.
Right.
Gotcha.
Again, the answer to this question is an important one. We are using government, Utah State trappers that help us with livestock damage, and so they're among the best in the state in terms of just background and knowledge and experience, and so that's why we went with them. Hopefully that helps.
That helps a little. I'll have more comments. Thank you.
Yep.
Thanks, JJ, for your questions. Any other questions from the public?
Yeah, right here.
Step right up. Give us your name and ask your question. In the microphone would be great, right?
So last year I had the opportunity to go hunting with a buddy on the Wasatch, and I've never experienced better bear hunting in my life. I've put in for 9 years now, and I drew that tag this year, having the same expectations. Went up there and hunted 15, 20 days. Never caught a bear. It's weird because we caught 5 in 2 days the year before. I did some research, talked to some people that knew a little bit more than I did, and you guys in the Wool Growers Foundation killed over 30 bears on that unit that summer. My question is, if I was to go hunt that summer and kill a bear or that many bears, I'd be a felon. I'd be thrown in prison. Why don't you let the hunters, if there's that big of a bear problem, why don't you let them hunt that summer? Why are we letting these trappers kill all these bears? Over 30 on one single unit that get thrown in a tree to waste, where someone that's put in their whole life to draw a coveted bear tag can't even find a bear.
So for depredation take, those trappers can only take bears out of active depredation situations. Another thing that we committed to the Farm Bureau and wool growers is that we won't grow predators on the backs of sheep farmers, sheepmen. And so we did increase pressure. We increased permits, we increased quotas on units that were running sheep. And so so those two things, potentially you could have seen a reduction in bears on that unit.
Yeah. Why don't you, like what JJ said, the houndsman, why don't we get a call? Why don't we get the chance to go hunt those bears instead of just getting thrown to waste? I mean, what are they doing with them bears, the trappers? Are they just getting left under a tree? Are they getting...
No, they have to skin them out, salvage their parts, and then they can auction them later.
Okay.
To help
And
fund the program.
another question I have is in 2023, there were 66,000 deer tags given out across the state.
Sorry.
2025, there's 88,000. You guys have been trying to, I mean, you opened up the lions a few years ago, trying to get them all killed. And the deer herd is struggling and has been struggling. But why you killing all the lions when you're doubling the deer tags on the Southwest Desert, the Beaver, the Pine Valley, all them units? Why are you trying to save the deer, but just doubling the tags, and that just makes it so you're killing both of them?
Couple things on deer hunting. One is you need to remember that we hunt male deer for the most part, and so we're managing to a buck to doe ratio. If we're above the buck to doe ratio for that unit, we will recommend more permits. Our management strategy is that we need to have enough bucks to breed the does, and if you have enough bucks to breed the does, just like domestic livestock, you don't need 50 bulls for every 50 cows. We can offer more opportunity. And so we make adjustments to our big game permits based on where they are. You know, there's a management plan in place. We'll make recommendations on that. As long as those females are surviving, then theoretically you can still grow deer and increase buck tags, I guess is the bottom line. And again, we manage to management plans. And so that's not optional. We have to make those recommendations based on the plan.
Yeah. Okay. That's all.
Thanks for your questions. Right. Appreciate you, Darren, answering those questions.
I'd like to make a comment. You okay, or do you need?
We're getting close to comments here. So this is an informational item, so it did not collect comments online, right? But we're going to take comments here in person.
Do we still have time for questions?
Real quick. Let's hear your question. Then we're going to jump into comments.
Yeah, Corby Fawcett. Thanks for everyone who is here and who commented. I think it's pretty easy to tell the passion in a houndsman's voice. It's a 24/7 job, so everyone's grateful that you guys are here. It's just something we're really passionate about. I guess my question is there a specific number on these 6 units on the harvest of what they want to see killed? Like, I guess when it used to be quota, you could go online and you could see Pine Valley. There had been 17 lions killed, right? And you could follow it that way.
Right.
It's kind of gotten a little tougher to follow.
I don't know if they discussed numbers. I suspect not. I think the objective would be just to be really aggressive and get as many as we can. I don't think we could if we wanted to get rid of all of them, take them all off the unit, but just to try to get those numbers down. The tail will be what's happening on the deer side. And so once we start seeing those that doe number, doe lost to lions coming down, then I suspect that's what they're looking at. So yeah, I don't know that there's a specific number.
And I guess I would suspect with the collared, which this is all going off of collared does being killed. So when a collared doe's killed, I'd suspect the trapper's going to head there, and that will probably be a tactic, right?
Yeah.
Okay. As you know, you've been around the hounds a little bit. That's a pretty high success rate. If you could find a deer kill, that's like the gold nugget, right? We might only find a few of those a year, but man, if that baby's buried, you're like, thumbs up, we're going to get him. Very high success rate running off of kills. And I know this, I'm not trying to repeat any questions, but I guess I just feel the importance of having the sportsman, having the opportunity. If these are going to be, if we're going ahead and killing these in those 6 units, and these deer, collared deer, is going to be targeted with snares, a lion doing what it's bred to do, killing a deer, coming back to eat what it killed, and then getting snagged for it. I mean, I would just love for, if there's a way to push the houndsman into that, let's not have the lion go to waste. I mean, a taxidermy, it's $6 to $9 grand that's money going to people in Utah, you know, small business owners that they could be making by doing that, let alone, you know, an outfitter. I think these outfitters we're kind of cutting back on lion hunters, because you bring a guy, you drive him around for 5 days, and man, we can't find a mature lion to kill, but we would love to help you out there.
Yeah. So. Okay, great.
Thanks. Okay, we're going to open it up to a public comment right now.
The question's still open. I had a question for Darren.
Yeah, let's hear your question. Did you have a comment as well for later?
Just a
Question. Okay.
Hey, Darren, Dan Riddle. I just represent myself. I had a question about this bill. There's in studies, there's a term called confounding variables, you know, and I'm sure you're aware of that in the study. And I know this year I've hunted the Boulder my whole life for deer. And this year we all hunted open sites with this new study. And that's to get some data. But then I just recently had heard about this new study that in my mind, can you speak to is there some confounding data that presents itself? Because you have one study presented on top of another study that really skews your outcome. And so that's where I'm trying to understand.
Well, I think
that's my first question.
Let me start by saying that I haven't been part of these discussions, so I don't know what's been discussed or what's been contemplated in terms of the study. So I apologize for not knowing all the details. I guess the only other thing I would say is that, you know, on the restricted weapon stuff, you know, really what we're looking at is what are the success rates? And the question there was, can we hunt with lower tech weapons and afford more opportunity? So in other words, can we give more people a deer tag if they have to hunt with open sights? And you know, if we saw an increase in deer on that unit because we removed lions, my recollection is, you know, part of that hunting studies, we would adjust permits based on what our plan says. And so, yeah, if there's more deer, then there'll be more of those permits available.
Sure. And I appreciate you. That's just that there's a conflict there when we've got two different studies with what the ultimate goal is more deer opportunity.
I appreciate that. And again, this is all being recorded. And so, you know, I apologize. I'm not in the details of this, you know, so I'm sure that they'll take a look at it. I want to say one other thing just real quick. I think I might have come off as kind of insensitive when I said, hey, you're on public land, tough. That's how I kind of felt like it sounded. You know, I understand all the time and effort you put into these dogs, and you know, they're worth a lot, but they're also, you know, really important. And I don't want to come across as, you know, but I just want to be honest about, you know, right now that's kind of the way things are going to be. So again, you know, if you're going to be hunting some of these units, it's important that you're aware of that. And obviously we're interested in your comments tonight. So we're happy.
One other quick question I have is, you'd mentioned the wool growers and the SFW behind that. Is that something that's common? I've never heard of outside representation funding these types of studies.
We you know, especially, I don't know if you're familiar with WRI, the Watershed Restoration Initiative.
Sure.
Utah has an incredible funding source for, you know, habitat work, studies, and our groups, you know, SFW, wild sheep, wool growers to some extent, but all of our sportsman organizations, especially through our conservation permit program, contribute millions of dollars to that. And Utah really does sit at the top of having resources to be able to do a lot of this work. And so that pays for our collar stuff, that pays for habitat work. And in this case, it pays for this. And we've used it in the past for, you know, to move beavers around if we wanted to use beavers as a restoration tool. So that's probably long-winded, but yeah, it's not unprecedented. We do this all the time.
Thank you.
Thanks, Darren. Okay, comments. We'll do the usual 3-minute comment, unless you're representing an organization on here, then we can do 5 minutes. First, we'll have Jeff Brewer. representing himself. And he'll be followed by Travis Jensen.
Hi, I'm Jeff Brewer. I'm just representing myself. My son said to me, whispered to me, stay cool. So I'll take a deep breath and try to stay cool. This is not a study. This is an extermination order on the lions. Everybody knows it. There's a big elephant in the room of who brought this about and why it's brought about, and nobody wants to say it. The average cougar in Utah that is killed now in the harvest data is 18 months old. That's the average age of a lion. What does that mean? What does that mean? Is that what you want?
No.
See, that's what's happening. Is
You're
this
welcome
is
to
an
continue,
extermination order? And do you know how it gall me? Do you know
No,
how?
let's-
Can I have my time to talk?
Let's keep it quiet there.
Can I have my time to talk? And shut the hell up.
Hey, you got time, right?
You shut him up. That's a crock of crap.
Okay, everybody sit down.
We'll definitely ask you to leave if you're.
Or you're gonna be.
No. We gotta figure this out, guys. He loses 800 lambs a year.
Oh,
Where's
shit.
your lamb?
Hey.
1,500 pounds, others 500.
Let's just
pounds.
go. Got a public forum going here. Let's just go ahead and head out. Okay? Just go back.
Extermination order is what it is. There is no goals. There's no protocol. You're going to trap and kill females and cubs. Do we realize the ramifications of that? That you walk in and you've got a female lion in a snare and her two cubs are laying there by her and you're going to kill them? There's no protocol. And we're not against the sheepmen. They got all hot at me when I'm speaking. We're not against the sheepmen. We've worked for years. I spoke at the Sheepmen's Convention 25 years ago when I was the president of the Houndsman's Group. We're not against them. But the Monroe Mountain, let's talk about the Monroe Mountain, my backyard. Now I cannot hunt it. I worked my whole life to retire to lion hunt, and I cannot hunt it. How come? How come I can't hunt it? Because you got these snares all over. I got three $10,000 dogs. Do you think I'm going to turn them loose and then have them run into a bait and be snared and killed? And then do we get reimbursed like the sheepmen do for them? Do we get reimbursed?
Are you directing that to me?
No, I was pointing at Darren. So I know you. Anyway, here's my point. You know, we feel like this did not come from the DWR. We have it from the top of the DWR that they didn't request this. It was shoved down their throat. Do it or else. We believe it's corrupt politicians and corrupt sportsmen's group that they want to do this to lay the blame on the lions. And like I said, all it's done is hurt us as houndsmen. I can't hunt the Monroe Mountain now. If, again, here's a caveat, if the government hunters would put the coordinates on a website so we could stay away from those. But I don't think there's any planning in this. I don't think there's any data collection. I don't think there's anything. Anyway, we know you didn't do it, the group here, because this didn't go through the politics. This didn't go through the public is what I meant to say. This was backdoored, backroom, politician work. I'm sorry. Thanks for listening to me. I didn't mean to upset these guys.
Thank you,
I'm not
Jeff.
against the sheep.
We appreciate your comments. Travis Jensen.
Good evening. My name is Travis Jensen, and I am representing Utah Wild Sheep Foundation. I'd like to begin by thanking the members of the RAC for volunteering their time and supporting Utah's wildlife, and allowing public comment on these important issues. Management decisions related to wildlife always tend to create discussions that are emotional, and when it comes to large predators, it's even more so. However, I respect the devotion that respective groups bring to the table and the differences of opinion in respect to lion populations and their impact on Utah's mule deer and bighorn sheep. Utah Wild Sheep Foundation is supporting the Utah DWR in their predator control study due to documented studies of causal factors of bighorn sheep mortality. These studies are not opinions. They're university level, postgraduate publications. On the Zion Desert Bighorn sheep unit, we're losing 25% of our adult sheep populations on an annual basis. Sheep numbers have declined from 800 to less than 350 animals, which is a 64% decrease. And permit numbers have been cut from 10 permits to 2 permits. Typically, these types of population declines in bighorn sheep are a result of disease events. However, there has not been a single sheep mortality tied to disease in a Zion unit. If you look at sheep populations statewide, there's not a single bighorn sheep unit in the state that meets current population objectives. Causal factors, the mortality data generated by BYU, Utah State University, and Utah DWR through ongoing collaring work shows that all 6 units chosen for the predator control study have adult deer mortality levels that will not support increasing deer numbers. The predator control study that we are supporting will provide the Utah DWR with information directly related to cougar numbers on the landscape and their impact on mule deer and sheep populations. That information can then be utilized by the DWR to make sound management decisions going forward. As a result, Utah Wild Sheep Foundation supports the Utah DWR in their efforts to better understand the impact that cougars have on deer and sheep populations in an effort to more effectively manage those populations in Utah, which is consistent with the language mandated to the Utah DWR by the Utah legislature. Thank you.
Thanks, Travis. JJ, we got you next. Thanks.
JJ Brewer. I'm just going to represent myself. I am here representing the Utah Houndsman Association. We're going to throw that out. First of all, I'm upset that the way a lot of this has come about, this is not how it's supposed to work. Sportsmen fighting sportsmen. We should try to get on the same page, and I know that's damn hard. You know, some things that are very bothersome to me is we didn't get to have this comment here. The ag guys didn't get to have a vote. I didn't get to have a vote on this. This was, once again, backdoor policies. We're talking about wild sheep. I believe only 2 of these units that are being done have wild sheep on them, correct? I believe so. 3? 3 of them. Okay, maybe there's future plans to remove the domestic sheep and put wild sheep on the others. I'm not sure. I have asked, in fact, my son, I'll make this personal. My son had a Monroe bear tag this year. We didn't get to use it because of fire, unfortunately. But I asked, I know people who run sheep on the mountain. I know they've had issues. I asked, hey, if the opportunity comes and them sheep are having issues, why not use somebody like my son or someone else who has a tag and let's go help them versus just no help. There's got to be tools to help each other, for hell's sakes. And we've offered to do that. So I feel like removing the resource from the sportsman is wrong. Now I'm going to bring something up real quick. And if he were alive, I guarantee this room would be different. But we won't go there. Clint Meekum did a study on the Monroe Mountain. Are we forgetting about that? From 1996 to 2013, we studied this very thing. He started the study on the Monroe Mountain, and we killed 40 mountain lions, or 40 permits were given for the mountain for years, and its effect to deer. We did that back and forth to watch what the deer trends did. If you want, the data's out there. I'd be real interested for everyone to go and look at it. We've done this exact study. Meanwhile, McLean Meekum was doing the same study on the Okers, where they harvested no mountain lions to see the effect on deer. We have those studies, guys. Let's use them. On the Monroe Mountain in 2008, when they went from having 40 deer tags, they dropped it clear to 5 for 5 to 10 years, 5 mountain lion tags on the whole mountain. Our deer population was at 6,300 in 2008. Currently, the count in 2022 was 5,000. In 2023, it was 5,000, I believe. If I'm wrong, Vance can correct me. And in 2024, it was 5,000. If killing these mountain lions is going to bring back our deer herd, why didn't it do it in 2022, 2023, and 2024 on the Monroe Mountain? Or when we did the study for, 17 years on the Monroe Mountain with Clint Meekum, one of the very best to ever do it. It didn't work then. Now, I'm not speaking for ag. If ag have issues, I believe that needs to be addressed, and I hope that we could be called to help them. But that did not prove to work in those studies. In fact, here's a statement out of that study that was done by Utah State University. Cougar population response. Interestingly enough, the Monroe study itself suggests that human hunting of cougars was non-compensatory. Sorry, I can't say that word. I'm just a car salesman. Additive for the cougar population, meaning hunting significantly reduced cougar numbers, but this did not automatically translate into a net survival gain for more deer. Closing statement of the study: intense lion harvest and control of mountain lions have shown to be no help to grow the deer population. That was in 2013. That was a study that was done on the Monroe for several years. My biggest point of this whole meeting is kind of how I started, is that this should have been voted on. This should have been something that was done through a public process, through you gentlemen, and for everyone to have a voice. I don't believe two conservation groups should get to decide for the general public what happens with our wildlife and with what should be the sportsman's opportunity to harvest those animals. Thank you.
Thanks, JJ. I have Hadley Sorensen next. She'll be followed by Hunter Beacom.
Good evening, members of the Regional Advisory Council. My name is Hadley Sorensen, and I'm the Executive Director of the Utah Wild Sheep Foundation. I appreciate the opportunity to be able to stand in front of you tonight and add a few brief comments. At the core of our position is a firm belief in science-based wildlife management. Emotions, personal experiences, and long-held viewpoints will always be part of the wildlife discussions, but sound management decisions must ultimately be guided by credible peer-reviewed data. This predator control study represents an opportunity to better understand what is truly occurring on the landscape and to move beyond assumption or speculation. This research will objectively evaluate the impact that cougars have on both bighorn sheep and mule deer populations. The data collected will speak for itself, whatever the results show, whether they confirm current concerns or challenge existing beliefs. We believe those findings should guide future management decisions, and that is how responsible wildlife stewardship should function. By supporting this study, we are also acknowledging that there is some level of risk here on our end and for all involved. We are willing to accept that risk because we are committed to letting the data lead the conversation. If the results indicate a need for change in management direction, we fully expect the future plans to reflect those findings. Our goal is not a predetermined outcome, but a clear understanding that allows the Utah DWR to make informed, defensible decisions that benefit Utah's wildlife resources in the long term. Thank you again for your time, for your service, and for your willingness to consider science as the foundation for wildlife management decisions here in Utah.
Thanks, Hadley. Mr. Meekum.
I got a few questions or comments on these studies they're doing. The Monroe has completely burned, and then the Boulder is just got a whole bunch of habitat work approved. So BYU study on the Boulder has showed that it's a habitat problem for deer. So now we're doing this little lion study, which we already know Darren said that the lion numbers have dropped and the deer haven't exploded. So that's a study in itself. We don't need to spend $300,000. I drove up here today and there was 10 deer dead from Tropic to here on the roads. I think we ought to be putting money into the highway work instead of a $300,000 study. But my biggest concern is the Boulder and Monroe. The Monroe's burned, so we're going to have tons of feed for the deer, and that's going to help them, and then the habitat on the Boulder. Thank you.
Thanks, Hunter. Casey Yardley, followed by Troy Henry.
Hello, I'm here to represent myself, I guess. But here's the thing of this whole deal. There's good people on both sides of this. My family's ranchers. Okay. I grew up being a cougar hunter. I've killed as many as anybody in here ever. So I know both sides of this. But the sad thing about this whole deal is none of this matters. None of it. What'll happen after this meeting? A couple head people from the SFW and from the Sheep Foundation will meet in a little room and they'll make up the decision for all of us. And that's a bunch of baloney. He said himself right there, or he did right there, that the Sheep Foundation and SFW, funded all this, give them all this money. Well, sure they do. They're calling the shots. That's what's going on. This right here, I'm used to, but it don't anymore. SFW calls the shots and the Sheep Foundation calls the shots. It's not right that you can take sheep and put them on the West Desert out here and try and buy out all the sheep permits
from the people who are the wool growers, the people who settled this place, and then put your sheep out there that if they get a sniffle, they die, and then go in there and annihilate the cougars. Well, I mean, it didn't do a damn thing, you know, but why can't we do this the right way? This is a money deal, guys. And these, I mean, anybody that don't dare stand up and say it, or it's bullshit. This is a money deal, and that's what it is. After this meeting, what the Glebe said, what I said, what the Brewer said, it don't matter, because they're going to meet with the sheep people and the SFW people, and they're going to make up and they're going to call the shots, and it's freaking wrong. This is America. This is America, and we the people aren't being heard. This is money, and it's wrong, and that's all I got to say.
Thanks, Casey. Troy Henry.
Troy Henry. I'm here with the Utah Farm Bureau, and we'd just like to throw our support behind this study. I think it's important that we find some hard data, and hopefully with working with these different groups, we can come to a baseline and make some sound decisions for the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comment cards for agenda item number 5? Come on up. Will Talbot.
Will Talbot, Pike County Commissioner, rancher on the Boulder Mountain and the Monroe Mountain. I ran sheep on the Monroe Mountain, and I know the loss that we took and eventually run us out of business. We turned it to cattle. Now we run on the Boulder. I've been on the Boulder 18 years. We held a Purdy 100 number loss for a lot of years, and in the last 3 years, our losses went from 300 now to 400 this year. I'm not saying it's all lions, but they're part of the problem. We support this to see what it does. If it don't, their study will go away. The lions will come back eventually and go from there. As a county commissioner, I've received a lot of phone calls from deer hunters who would support this. So that's where my support is.
Thank you, Will. Appreciate it. Any other comment cards for this agenda item? Okay. I sure appreciate everybody that stepped up and commented. I wish I had a silver bullet answer for any of you on what to do. As I've looked into this myself, just to wrap up, we're not going to be making any motions or any action, as this is not an action item, but it's an important item. And in Utah Admin Code 23A-11-302, it does give the director big game protection authority. And when that was instituted and amended, the director has a lot of levers that he can pull as it relates to predator management. And so I know the question is, where do I direct my comments? I just got to come to the RAC meeting and speak to us, and now you get to look at us not make a motion or an action. And I'm sorry if that's what you were hoping for, but the director has the authority from Utah Code, and we're bound, he's bound to follow that. And then these projects come about, as far as I can tell, as created by the DNR. And then they look for funding, look for those groups that are willing to support these projects. All these public projects are public on the website. It's not very hard to find, but I realize it's not part of this process. But these projects are very easy to see the funding, the dates they're approved, where they're going, who's the project manager, and you can get the names and emails of everybody at DWR real quick of who's in charge and who's pulling the strings. I apologize, it's not here before you that I have all that printed out for you, but that information is there, and it's our responsibility as Americans, as sportsmen, as Utahns to find those answers and to go to our representatives, that our elected officials, like, they work for the people, and let's make sure that we hold them to that. So there's my little soapbox, and we'll close this agenda item and move on to agenda item number 6, the Utah Fur Bear update. If you're going to stay for that one, we'd love to have you stick with us. If you need to exit, you're welcome to as well. So
Thanks.
okay, number 6.
We'll do that. I just want to say we appreciate all the comments. It's good to hear the feedback. It's good to understand how people feel. So thanks for coming and expressing your opinions. And I know that this is a passionate subject for a lot of people. So fur bearers, this one's pretty straightforward. We're just changing the dates according to the calendar. We're offering the maximum under the plan for bobcat harvest. So maximum permits, no cap, maximum number of days. So that's basically it in a nutshell.
Any questions from the RAC about fur bearer updates? Russ?
I've got one.
So are you increasing the number of bobcat permits because the population is growing?
The plan has a cap. And so the way the plan works is if all the indicators, 3 indicators for bobcats, if all those look good and they're in a good place, then we offer the max opportunity. And so that's the current plan. And that's what we're recommending through the current plan.
So in the presentation, maybe I'm confused. It said there was a six permit limit per person. But in the same slide, I thought it said there was no cap. There was no.
Yeah. So an individual can get up to 6 permits, but as many individuals as want to get 6 permits can get those permits.
Okay. So there's no overall cap.
Overall cap. Right.
So and I thought you just said there was a cap. So
yeah. Sorry. I might've misspoken.
All right. That's where I was confused.
Any questions from the public? Come on up, Jeff.
Jeff Brewer, I'm just wondering what is going to be the ramifications of the bobcat harvest in these government snares?
Yeah, it's a good question. Again, I hate to keep saying this. I don't know all the details, but so it's difficult to speak of. I know that bobcat sets sometimes overlap with where these lions will be, and so the objective, I'm sure, is to minimize bite takes. In other words, they're trying to catch a lion. They're going to try to avoid taking bobcats or any other species. But I'm afraid that's about all I can offer. So I'm sorry about that.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I do have a question. I've kind of wondered a long time, take a little heat off the last subject. So to get a bobcat tag, you have to have a fur bearer's license, and to have a fur bearer's license, you have to take a trapping course, right?
Correct. So you're gonna use traps, yeah.
But to buy the permits, you have to have the fur bearer, and the fur bearer and trapping license are together. So
I understand what you're saying.
Yeah. So that's just what's confused me, because
you can take bobcats without trapping.
Yes.
So in order to put a trap in the ground, you have to have the trapper's license and trapper's education. But theoretically, you could buy bobcat permits and hunt them with another method.
So I don't have to have a fur bearer's permit to buy a bobcat tag.
If you're not putting traps out, you don't need to
Okay. So if I'm predator calling or hunting with my dogs, I don't think that's right.
Better make sure that's right.
Okay.
That's great.
So
Have a fur bearer license, not a trapping number.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I'm conflating the two.
Okay.
I'm sorry. Yeah.
It's no, I'm not saying it's just always confused me. That's why I thought, hey, I drove 2.5 hours.
I was thinking
so.
trap number. Yeah. So
Yeah.
and we call that a license as well. So okay. Yeah. Thanks everybody for clarifying that. So yeah.
But to do your fur bearer's license, you have to go in person and do the trapping course to get the fur bear.
It's not really a trapping course, it's a fur bearer harvester.
Right. It's similar to hunter ed.
Instructor, you go through more than just trapping.
Okay. But you go through the trapping as well.
Yes,
Okay.
that's kind of the main method of
Yeah. Because
So for the record, just because you weren't on the mic, I don't know if we can hear it with the owls or not, but just, yeah, there's more to the fur bearer course than just the trapping part. There's how to handle and et cetera. So those are all things that we have, which is why that is still required to get a bobcat. Typically, you're going to skin those out and sell those.
Okay. Because I've always wanted, because you can kill them multiple ways, not just traps, right?
And you have to have a fur.
Yeah.
Fur bear's
and you don't have to have any trapping experience or anything to go hang a snare for a lion in June, right? Is that correct?
That's right. Yeah, that's the way the law is written.
Thanks.
Any other questions? Okay, I've got a couple public comments, I believe, that wanted to comment on this item. Kelly Lair? Go ahead with your comments,
My
Kelly.
name is Kelly Lair, and I'm here to represent the Utah Trappers Association. There's one thing that just came to mind that I'd like to clarify. When these guys are going out there to catch those lions with their snares, they're going to be using a loop, and it's going to be probably 12, 14 inches off the ground, okay? They're not going to catch bobcats in those. I mean, it'll be a rare case if they do. I rarely use traps anymore, and there's other guys in here the same. We use snares, okay? When you're setting a snare for a bobcat, typically your loop is this big around, okay? And it's 8 or 9 inches off the ground. I've never caught a lion in a bobcat snare, ever. Now, when I was exclusively using traps, I did turn a couple of lions loose through the years that I'd caught. And it was in small traps, number 3 traps. I don't know how many of you are familiar with that, but that isn't a very big trap, okay? But anyway, I wanted to clarify that first, but as an association, we want to fully support the recommendation that they're making for next year's predator seasons. And we want to retain the tools that we're using today in the process. Thank you.
Thank you, Kelly. I've got one more. Corby Fawcett. You're good with your questions? No comments. Okay. All right. Any other comments needed from the RAC? Good. Thank you, Darren, for this informational item. Appreciate it. Okay, we're going to move on. Agenda item number 7, Utah black bear recommendations. This is an action item.
Correct.
And we'll bring you back up, Darren. We've got just a couple changes and a new unit.
Right. So what we're recommending is to divide the LaSalle unit, which is currently 1 unit, and to cut the Dolores triangle out from that. Again, just sort of a brief overview of the recommendation. So I'm happy to answer any questions about that.
Questions from the RAC on this item? Chuck?
Just want to clarify a couple things. First of all, how big is the Dolores Triangle? I mean, how many acres are we talking?
I don't know the answer to that, Chuck. Sorry.
Okay.
I
mean, we're
don't
only
know if
putting
that
10 permits
region's
in there, but it seems like it's a chunk of land.
Doesn't look like it. Yeah, sorry. I can find that out, but I don't know.
So to make sure I understand, we're adding 10 permits, so it's going to go from 104 in that same area to 114 total.
Correct. Yeah. And the 10 would be on that smaller
Dolores,
portion.
okay.
And the rationale behind that is that currently most of the bear harvest is taking place outside of the Dolores Triangle. It's mostly on the South LaSalle unit, and there's some bears that are taken in that portion, but it's just a handful. And so the region was thinking that this might be a way to add some opportunity on the mountain that's not being taken advantage of, and to make people have to choose where they want to hunt. So that's what the thinking was.
Bart, go ahead with your question.
Yeah, do you have a good rationale for why you didn't just decrease 10 permits from the original group, the original number, instead of just keeping it? I didn't hear like a population reason. It just seemed like we only want to increase hunter opportunity. There was no other rationale. So I was just curious if you could elaborate.
I can tell you the rationale. Whether you agree with it or not is part of this process. But the idea, most of these bears are under the current permit numbers. Those are all coming off of this part of the LaSalle's that would still be its own unit. And so having people hunt Dolores Triangle specifically for a permit that's specific for that, we felt like there was additional opportunity, and the region felt like 10 was an appropriate number. So.
Okay, so you don't have a population rationale. You just thought it was a good idea. Okay, thank you.
Smart. Any other questions? All right, any questions from the public? JJ?
Sorry, I'm somewhat confused. Sorry. So
Sure.
there's 104 current permits on the LaSalle Mountain, correct?
As far as I know, yes. We can look it
okay.
up if we need to.
Okay,
but
and
I'm,
we
I'm
aren't-
taking Chuck.
And we're
I know
not
Chuck looked
taking
at
those
it.
10 permits as it's in the same current area that's being managed for that 104. We're not taking those 10 out of that 104. We're adding
That's
10 and creating another unit
correct.
that is now
Correct, JJ.
inside the LaSalle's.
Correct. That's the recommendation. Sure.
Okay, I guess my question would be, why not just take the 10?
That's an
Current
option, but that's not what we're recommending. So.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, online public comment. We had none for this agenda item. So I'll call for public comment. I have one comment card on this. This is agenda item number 7. I have Kevin Norman.
Kevin Norman representing SFW. Feels good to be hated, I guess. We support this recommendation. Also, Austin, I'd like to thank you for looking into how the WRI process works, how things are funded, how it came down from the director and whatnot, and clarify a lot of the assuming going on. So appreciate that. Thank you.
Thanks, Kevin. Any other public comment? All right, we'll go to RAC discussion on this agenda item. Any RAC discussion?
Maybe just to note that we did get a email from the backcountry hunters and anglers that were supporting the creation of the Dolores Triangle Bear Hunt Unit.
Aaron, follow-up question. Is there any data to support, I mean, if there was bears killed in the last few years, how many were killed in this new unit? So we have location data on
So I looked at the location data today, and it looked like 5 or 6, maybe 4.
Some were killed.
Some were, but they're kind of along the borders. And so it's some were. It's not none, but a small handful were. But most of them, the biggest concentration is really south of there on the LaSalle.
In the current LaSalle hunt, if it was proposed at 104 tags, they would not be able to hunt the Dolores. It's not an inclusive.
Currently,
unit.
they can, but under this proposal, you draw one or the other. You'd apply for
It's one or the other. You're carving it out.
Yeah,
Okay.
and those Dolores, those 10 tags would be, I think, 2 in the spring, 6 in the summer, and 2 in the fall.
Okay. Any other RAC discussion, or I could entertain a motion?
I'll make
Go ahead, Trevor.
just to accept as presented.
Motion from Trevor to
I'll
accept.
second.
Second from Chuck. Any discussion needed? All those in favor in the room, raise your hand and say aye. Unanimous here in the room. What about online? Brooklyn and Rachel are yes. All right, all those opposed. Bart is opposed. Chad, what's your vote?
Sorry, I was trying to find the hand. It was yes on. Thanks.
Okay, Chad's in favor. I have one opposed. 8-1. Okay. 8-1, motion passes. Thank you. I don't know why simple math is so hard sometimes. Okay, we'll go to agenda item number 8, predator control incentive amendments.
Okay.
They're paying you overtime today, right?
No, but I think Chad owes me lunch.
Definitely.
At least. So this one's pretty straightforward too. This is normally the division, any kind of location data in the division is protected data. So we, if someone made a public information request, we protect, our deer locations, our caller locations, and we have been protecting, coyote kill locations. But we looked at the rule and we felt like there was enough vagary in the language in there that we wanted to make sure it was clear that those locations are protected as well. So that's it in a nutshell.
Any questions from the RAC? Questions from the public? I got a question from Bart. Go ahead.
Sorry, computer's responding slowly. So I remember last year when we were addressing the bounty issue, and you were trying to, I asked about data, or, where are they being taken? And you had information that was reported to you in the bounties, but you didn't have anything from the counties. And so you don't have county data. You didn't seem to be trying to get county data. So this is just an optional thing, and you want to protect it. And I didn't really understand a good reason. It didn't seem like it was articulated a good reason why you're trying to protect this data. You just don't want to share it. What's the negative cost of sharing this data? It wasn't articulated. I'd like to understand that.
There's a couple of reasons, and you might have to clarify what you mean by county. You mean coyote take by county?
Well, it was the bounty. It was the bounty information, because last year when you were trying to increase incentivize people hunting coyotes, you were basically saying we had low reported numbers in these specific deer management areas.
Oh yeah. Okay.
And then when I asked, do you have information from the counties? You said, no, we don't have that data. So you were basing data just on state data, which you had stated was not as reliable, or more people were using the county bounty system than they were using the state.
Right.
And so you were basically making a decision on basically incomplete data, and arguably not the best data. And so now you're trying to not share now you don't want to share it. Now I just want to understand what the rationale is for that. What is the harm in releasing the data?
So we do an annual report on the bounty program specifically, and we do provide a heat map so that people can see, where the harvest is concentrated. What we want to protect is the actual site, and the reason that we do that is because this is where people's traps are set. This is where people are hunting, and this is information that is, I don't want to say proprietary, but I think I don't know if you can relate or not, but if you're a hunter,
I can relate. I'm not a hunter, but I can relate because my dog has been caught in coyote traps. And so that's my concern, is I don't know where to not go when I'm out with my dogs on public land that is equally usable by me.
No, that's fair.
So that's my concern.
Okay, yeah, we do. So that heat map is available on our website under that bounty program in the annual report, so you can get a feel for where those are concentrated. But yeah, we don't.
So I still don't understand the harm. So it's still illegal to mess with the trap. You are not allowed to disturb a trap. So that's illegal. But I don't see what the harm is in knowing where they're at so you can avoid. And now you're asking us to avoid a large polygon or a heat map, which doesn't give us fidelity. So I know, don't go on that trail. Don't go down that canyon. And I'm not the only one. There's a lot of people who recreate on the land and do not hunt on the land. So you're protecting one group, but not protecting another group that both have equal access.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. I guess, the reason that we want to, it's just a standard practice that we don't release location data. And so we just want to make sure we're consistent across the board. So that's the reason for the change, but obviously this is a public process, and we're happy to hear your comments. And I think those are good points, Bart. So
okay, thank you.
All right. Any other questions? Questions from the public? All right. No online public comments came in for this agenda item, but I do have one in-person comment from Kelly Larrigan. Come on up, Kelly.
Yeah, I'm Kelly Lair, and I'm supporting the Utah Trappers Association as well as myself. We fully support this. I know every time I bounty quite a few coyotes, but every time I bounty one, I think, well, who's gonna see these coordinates, exact location, so they can come and screw with my trapping or snaring devices. And personally, I'd rather they didn't see that. I mean, general location is fine, but coordinates, no, I don't think they should be coming in there and messing with my stuff. So we fully support that, the recommendation. Thank you.
Thanks, Kelly. That's the only public comment I had, so open it for RAC discussion. Any discussion needed? Ready to entertain a motion?
I'll make a motion. We accept it as presented.
Got a motion to accept as presented.
I'll second that motion.
Second by Chris. All those in favor in the room, raise your hand. Audible. Favor? Thank you. And online. Let's see. Who's the third one there? I have Brooklyn, Rachel, and Chad in favor online. Bart, how do you vote?
Opposed.
Opposed. Thank you, Bart. Motion passes 8-1. Bart, do you wish to speak to your opposing vote any more than you have already?
I would just be repeating myself.
Thanks, Bart. We sure appreciate your comment. All right, that ends agenda item number 8. Last one, agenda item number 9. Cooperative agreements for big game or turkey. Roll R657. Darren.
So
back
just
again.
a quick update on this one. We noticed after the packet went out that in the definition of cleared and planted land, and I apologize, I was going to put this on the screen, but while I was talking, I was trying to log into my computer and I locked myself out of it. So this is the best I can do. In the packet, it said, it defined, there's well, let me just read it. Cleared and planted land means private land or privately leased state or federal land used to produce a cultivated crop for commercial gain and this is really small. The cultivated crop is routinely irrigated or routinely mechanically or manually harvested. We want to replace that or with an and that's just consistent across our rules for how we define that. So
the first or?
Yeah.
The
one
routinely?
Yeah, between routinely irrigated, that should be routinely irrigated and routinely mechanically or manually harvested.
All right, thank you.
So again, small change. It's fairly significant, but it's just a tweak, and we need to make sure we're consistent.
Okay. Any questions from the RAC on this item? Russ?
Let me get this thing on. So help me understand, but well, I'll just start off right here. It says the benefit is the objective. You want me to eat that thing? The objective is to incentivize landowners to manage their crops or livestock forage in a manner conducive to wildlife nutrition. And it goes on and talks about direct payments to landowners for the forage. Question is exactly how does that look? How do you calculate? For instance, if I have a herd of 100 turkeys, which I do, how do you calculate?
So the way this is going to work, we need to get the rule, and I'll address some specifics, but we need to get the rule in place before we can do this program. There's always been, we do have, there's a rule about contracts. There's a rule in the depredation rule. It talks about conservation leases, which is, it's sort of the same. But in this case, what we're doing is we want to try to do everything we can to help mule deer in most cases at this moment in time. But this obviously could pertain to sheep or wild sheep or bison or some other things, big game in general, and turkeys. So what we will do is we will handle sideboards and policy, and I'll give you some examples. The way this would work is that the division would be the initiator of these agreements. So we would approach a landowner and say, hey, maybe you've had damage, you've got turkeys, and we're moving them, or we're harvesting them, or, in the case of deer, maybe we're harvesting a lot of does. We would approach a landowner and say, hey, if you'd be willing, what would it take for you to be willing to put up with these deer and not kill does here so that we can try and benefit the overall herd? So we have, it could be based on how many deer do you have and multiplied by the use. And generally, I think the way it would work out is it'd be more than what you would get in a depredation payment. And it may not be it may be, maybe we're paying you to leave your last cutting, that the deer come in the fall and we'll basically buy that crop. So there could be a lot of different ways, but the way it'll work is that we'll negotiate with the landowner to decide. And if both parties agree, then we'll put an agreement in place. If one or both, feel like, well, we can't come to agreement, we'll move on down the road. So I know that's maybe a little vague, but that's how we foresee it working. And again, this is going to be a adaptive process. We're gonna choose a couple of pilot areas, one in the southern region probably, and in the northeastern region, just kind of get our legs under us and see how this is going to work.
Darren, I have a question.
Sure.
Where do the funds come from for this?
Well, since this is a population level management tool, they could potentially be Pittman Robertson federal funds matched with our other management funds. And so that's a 75-25 match. And that's one of the real advantages of taking it. This isn't a depredation thing. This is about how do we grow our populations? How do we manage? And this may be one more tool in the toolkit to try to address some of these. And there have been some areas where we've removed a significant number of female deer because they're doing crop damage. And this isn't, again, it'll be up to the landowner and the division to come to an agreement. And if we don't agree, we'll continue with the normal process.
Darren, can this happen on a CWMU?
No. The language here precludes it. So if you're on a CWMU, landowner association, et cetera, this would be separate and apart. The idea is that, if you're running a CWMU, you're already receiving compensation for wildlife, and that should be it.
Last question. Can said landowner still kill does and get depredation?
No, that'd be, well, we'd put the details in the agreement, but I don't foresee that. I mean, that'd defeat the purpose. So the agreement would outline, we won't be giving you doe permits. You're not going to ask for them. You're going to tolerate them. And the payment's going to have to be, it's either adaptable or sufficient that, if those deer start growing and they start getting more deer, that we need to take that into account as well. So, but again, this will be on a case by case basis and we'll work through it. And I'm sure as we move down the road, we'll get a better idea of what's going to work and what's not. And we'll come back with tweaks if we need to.
Okay. Chuck?
Yeah, under subsection 3, you had the kind of the sideboards of how you approve this. Is that any one of these or all of these underneath there where you?
Let me look. Do you want to read it to me real quick?
Yeah, let me see if I can read it on my.
Sorry, I'll try and look it up.
I took a picture of it. It says the division may approve a cooperative agreement for big game or turkey on cleared and planted land, and the agreement will help big game or turkey populations that are below unit population objectives, or will help manage turkey populations.
Yeah.
B, a cooperative agreement will result in increased forage availability for big game and turkeys, or a reduction in female harvest in the population, and increased under opportunities. So that I wasn't sure if it had to be A and B, or
it could be,
or either one.
Either one, yeah, it could be either one. So yeah, thanks for doing that. I apologize for my computer. Normally I have that up so I can look at it.
My computer's really small.
Yeah, I was, yeah, exactly.
Any questions from the public? All right, we have no online public comment, but I do have one here in person. Comment card, Kevin Norman. And that's it for this agenda item on comments.
Kevin Norman, representing SFW. We support this program. It's pretty exciting. We've kind of asked the question for years, can't we pay some of these producers to give up their depredation permits and save some does? So I think we have confidence that the division knows the history of these areas and can do a good job and use those funds wisely. And I think it'll be a good thing for our herds moving forward. So thank you for your time.
Thanks. Troy?
Troy Henry with Utah Farm Bureau. We applaud the DWR for trying some new things, trying things that work. Landowner wildlife conflicts are common. We see more and more every year with encroachment and Yeah, we're excited to see where something like this can lead to. And, hopefully we'll have opportunities to tweak it, make it better, make it, more manageable in the future. I did have a question. By adding "and" in there between irrigated and mechanically harvested, does that take irrigated pasture out?
Yes. Yeah.
And that's something that we'd like to see worked on in the future for all programs, just because there's so much feed taken from irrigated pasture. But that's my comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Troy. All right, open it for RAC discussion.
So I'd just like to comment similar to what Troy said. We've been involved. I'm also involved in the Farm Bureau, and we've been involved. That's one of the biggest complaints I've heard from a lot of our farmers that are active hunters is it's frustrating when the guy that's the squeaky wheels making, almost creating a source of income off of depredation payments, when there's a lot of us specifically to deer that are more than happy to have the deer. Might not like the elk, but I like the deer. And I think this is an awesome program that's going to do a great to help build this relationship back. So I think this is pretty cool.
Thank you. Any other RAC discussion? You'd entertain a motion.
I'll make the motion to accept it as presented.
As presented.
I'll second it.
Motion by Trevor to accept as presented, second by Russ. All those in favor of the motion, raise your hand, say aye. Unanimous here and online. I got 4 hands up. Passes 9-0. That is unanimous. Okay, thank you. To wrap up, that ends our agenda item for today. I appreciate everybody who came and supported this public process for what it is. I encourage you to submit comments to the board, to the Wildlife Board, if you have any. January 8th, so it'll be after the new year, will be the board meeting where final decisions are made on these agenda items in Farmington at 9 a.m. Merry Christmas to everybody. Happy New Year. Thanks for coming. Meeting's adjourned.